Hey, good afternoon, folks. It's Alistair here from A Force for Good. Once again, broadcasting to you live from our great British city of Glasgow. And I'm here today, as always, as we will be right up until Thursday, the 6th of May, right up until the Great Scottish Ejection. I'm broadcasting to you from the constituency of Glasgow Pollok. This is the constituency where we are going to get Humza out. And right now I'm walking through Moss Park, which is one of the areas here in Glasgow Pollok. Good morning to Adam. Good afternoon to Adam and to Ian and to Morwena. Great to see you here. Also to Alan and Evelyn. Good afternoon to you, Evelyn. So it's the 6th of April today, which is a famous day in Scottish history because the 6th of April today in 2021 is the 701st anniversary of a great British constitutional document which was called the Declaration of Arbroath. And that was dated today, 701 years ago. And what was all that about and what is its relevance today? Well, let's just briefly touch on that. So this was a document, the Declaration of Arbroath, dated 701 years ago today on the 6th of April. And various nobles, Scottish nobles at the time, appended their seal to this document. And it was delivered to the Pope of the day, which was Pope John the 22nd, who was residing in France, and it was delivered from Arbroath Abbey. And basically it was an ongoing campaign to persuade the Pope to tell the English king, who was Edward II, just to kind of stay off the backs of Scotland, to leave Scotland alone. That was the main gist of it, but they wanted the Pope especially to recognise Scotland as a separate kingdom in itself, rather than a feudal land controlled by King Edward. And their champion was Robert the Bruce. And they claimed that everything had been peace and quiet, freedom and peace up to the time when Edward I basically stuck his oar in. And they wanted the Pope to recognise Robert the Bruce as the rightful king. And as I say, to tell Edward to leave Scotland alone, Edward II. And in return, the Scots suggested that they might help to raise an army for the Pope for his latest crusade. And basically, the Declaration of Arbroath is one of the key documents in British constitutional history. It maybe doesn't get the airtime that the Magna Carta gets. It was, after all, 105 years after the Magna Carta, which was back in 1215. But it basically had the same message, which was that the people of Scotland, or as far as the Magna Carta is concerned, the people largely in England, but also in Wales, Ireland and Scotland, wanted the king of the day to follow what the people wanted. And if the people didn't like the king, then they reserved it in their right to overthrow him. So in that sort of attitude, we can see the beginnings of what has become today our parliamentary democracy. Although some might also make the point that the prime ministers of the day these days are acting a little bit too much, you could say, like the kings of old. Certainly, it seems we do presently have a little bit of an issue with parliamentary, what shall we say, the ability of the MPs, and especially the Prime Minister, or in Scotland, the First Minister, to answer to what the actual people want. Anyway, be that as it may, we've come on since those ages back in 1320. Of course, the bit that the Scottish Nationalists love about the Declaration of Arbroath is the bit where it says that never will the Scots under any condition be subjected to the lordship of the English, because it is in truth not for glory, nor riches, nor honours that we are fighting, but for freedom alone, which no honest man gives up, but with life itself. Well, fighting words indeed, and that's the reason I think that the Declaration of Arbroath appeals to a certain kind of mentality, because of those exciting and fighting words, and that's what differentiates it from the Magna Carta in many ways. Indeed, if it wasn't for that particular bit, it's questionable the extent to which a certain Scottish nationalist would really care about the Declaration of Arbroath. In any case, we wrote an article about this last year, which found the genesis of that paragraph, which had actually been plagiarized by the nobles at the time from a Roman historian's account of an issue to do with the Roman Empire, where indeed he had written almost these exact same words, and they had been the nobles who put the Declaration of Arbroath together, basically copied that and stuck it into the Declaration. Now there's roadworks going on over there, so I don't want to pass them if I can avoid it, just for the sake of the noise level. Anyway, we are in Glasgow Pollok today, and I'll turn around so you can see. This is all part of our ongoing campaign to remind people to come out to vote on the Great Scottish Ejection on the 6th of May. We need to get Humza out. Okay, back in 2016, he only got elected. Because over half the constituency did not bother to turn out to vote. So if we can get folk out to vote, then we can make change happen. And let's do this. Let's get Humza out. Let's give Humza the heave. Hi to Derek. So does the Declaration of Arbroath hold any lessons for us today? Well, in a sense, what it does is it reminds us of how far we have come. Back in those days, and it was only 700 years ago, the Scots and the English were quite literally at each other's throats. Quite literally at each other's throats. But over time, various unions have changed those matters. First, we had the regal union, then we had the political union. And it's those changes which have brought all the people of the British Isles closer together, to the point where the idea of such violence is surely unthinkable. So, to the extent that we remember the Declaration of Arbroath, we remember to be grateful for how far we have travelled together, how far we have come. We're reminded that the union of Scotland and England has brought us together to the point where physical conflict in the past is surely unthinkable. And indeed, we can think about the extent to which cultural coming together has also happened. For example, the Declaration of Arbroath was all about Robert the Bruce. Well, today when we think of Robert the Bruce, we think of that great statue at Bannockburn, which also appears on the cache up here in Scotland. That was designed, for example, by Charles Pilkington Jackson, who is an Englishman. So that cross-cultural coming togetherness shows an example of the importance not just of the political union, but the cultural union. Today, the royal family, for example, is a direct descendant of Robert the Bruce. We don't have competing kings and queens. We have one royal family which in itself embodies British history in its own being, which is a fantastic thing. Very few countries have a head of state in which you can trace basically all the history through themselves as human beings. So basically, where there was war, now there is peace, and let's keep it peaceful. So thank goodness for the political union of 1707, which has created peace between Scotland and England, and as a consequence, much positive social and cultural interaction. Getting a bit windy out here. I'm going to try to find a place to shelter. And talking about freedom, which is what we're reminded about when we look in these old documents. What about our freedom today? Who is the biggest threat to freedom in Scotland right now? Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom even of worship. All of these things have been stopped by the present Scottish National Party, who are in fact doing everything opposite to what a government that believes in freedom would do. So folks, the message there is simply to get these people out at the Great Scottish Ejection. Now, you've got until the 19th of April to register to vote. And you can register to vote at this address, which I'll put up. If you've already received your polling card, then you are registered to vote already. If you haven't received your polling card, you might want to be thinking about if you are registered or not. That's the site to go to. That's the site to go to. Standing on a railway bridge here at the moment. Going to head back over. Folks, we are reminding everybody that Humza Yousaf will lose his seat if enough of us get out and vote against him. And if you're a Scottish nationalist and if you believe in freedom, then what you want to do is not vote for him on the first ballot paper, okay? There's other parties standing in Glasgow Pollok on the first ballot paper that believe in Scottish independence, so you can vote for them instead. But if you vote for Humza, all you're doing is encouraging him in his foolishness. And then on the second ballot paper, well, you can vote for whoever you like, of course. But on the first ballot paper, do not vote for Humza. Because whether you are for the union or whether you're against it, we can all agree that we must vote out of our parliament those such as Humza, whose anti-free speech law is destroying the intellectual rigour for which Scotland was once known. You know, this is the land of the Enlightenment, the Scottish Enlightenment. It's not the land of the suppression of free speech. So, folks, we'll be back tomorrow with our studio programme. And then on Thursday, we'll be back in the constituency again with some history in the constituency. So this is Alistair reminding you, don't vote for Humza. And let's get him out at the Great Scottish Ejection on the 6th of May. Okay, folks, please share. Please give us a thumbs up. Please like. Let's get this message out. Take care. See you later.